my colleague commented on my yesterday video about Flexbox that the approach I used there is not universal and will not work if we don't know how many empty cells we have in the last row. And he's absolutely right. So today I will make another video about the different way to make a Flexbox layout, Flexbox grid-like layout. And let's see if we can do it in the more universal way. So, what exactly is wrong with my grid? It looks fine when a container allows us to have only 3 cells, but if we make it wider, let's say 500, and then add 2 more divs, then you can see that our fix doesn't work anymore. Here our pseudo element replacing one of the cells. If we have a grid with 4 cells in a row and only 2 of them is available, then we have these gaps again and we have to add 2 more elements here, what doesn't really make sense. So let's try to change it. First, let's get rid of this space between and replace it with the flex start. Okay, now we fixed our alignment, but we do not have spacing between cells. Let's remove this grid after, we don't need it anymore. And what I want to do next? I want to decide how many cells we're gonna have in our grid. If we want to have 4 cells, let's just calculate the width using calc function. And we will just divide 100% on the amount of our cells. In our case, it's 100%. Divide by 4 and we get 25%, and then we will set the spacing just using minus. Let's say we want to have 10 pixels spacing between our grid, and we will add margin right, 10 pixels. Let's check if it works. Yes, it works, we have a margin, but now we do not have 4 cells in a row, we have only 3 cells in a row. It happens because this margin, last one, with this last, with the margin of the last cell, we have the width of 4 cells bigger than the width of our container, and the last cell just goes down on the next row. To avoid it, we can use a special CSS selector AntsChild. Let's see how it works. We copy this selector, and after div we put semicolon and use our AntsChild like this. Now it means that every 4th element will have properties that we will set up here. So we need to get rid of our margin right, we will set to 0 and reload the page. It worked, but not exactly how I expected it to work, because I forgot to add here a box sizing. We need to set it to we need to set box sizing for all elements to border box to avoid this type of behavior when our elements add the size of the border to their sizes. So we set it to we set box sizing to the border box. And now it works as it should work. If you wonder why, check out my video about CSS box model. I will leave you the link right here. So we set up our grid, and now it works as we want it to work. it has spacing, it has last row that is totally fine. And but now if we want to change amount of our cells in a row, we should go here and calculate the percentage. We can replace it with 20, and we have to replace it here as well to remove the margin from the right grid, and it will change. But this is not the very convenient way to do it, because we have to change stuff here, change stuff here. I suggest to refactor it using CSS Variables. So let's try to do it. Let's assign our CSS variable. That's how we do it. I will call it grid size, and I will set it to 4. And then instead of using hard-coded value here, I will do the following thing. I will put here 100%, and I will divide it in our CSS variable that we have defined just now, and let's also replace this value to our grid size. And let's refresh the page. Yeah, it works now. Magic. So now we should just change the value here. We can change it to anything, and it will work. And this is quite convenient way to change amount of our columns or cells or whatever. We can set it here to 2 or to 9, everything you want. And as you see, there is no issues with alignment. But what if you want to change amount of our cells for different screen resolutions? Yeah, we can do it as well, just redefining this value. We can use media query for it. So let's say we want to have 3 cells for mobiles and 5 cells for desktops. We will use min width. Let's set it to 640 pixels, and here we can define our variable again. Yeah, this is how it should be. So if we change the size, our grid switched to 5. So changing just one variable, we change our grid, and it nicely works. So I hope my dear colleagues will like this approach more, and if you have any questions or suggestions, let me know in comments section below.